Let's go.
Let's go. Oh,
Do you want to?
sorry. I'll let you.
Next one.
I'm excited and I feel relaxed and I'm ready to party. Let's say sorry. You don't need to do that. You don't need to apologize. It's a fucked up female habit. You don't need to be sorry for anything ever.
Can you guess what every woman's worst nightmare is?
I don't have rage issues.
I have nothing to prove to you.
When I'm good, I'm very good. But when I'm bad, I'm better.
I say when it comes to stardom and Lauren, there are no accidents.
Hi, Karen Peterson.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Citizen Dame, the podcast where we're all awake.
So awake.
I am Lauren Humphreys Brooks. Took me a moment to remember who I was. And with me, as always, is Karen Peterson. Hello, Karen.
Hello.
So, Karen, we have been off for a couple of weeks because one, is nice to have a little bit of a break, and two, you were off at Sundance.
I was.
So why don't you tell us, like, how was Sundance? Did you like anything that you saw that we should definitely be looking out for? Like all of that.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I actually saw some really great stuff this year, and I didn't see that much that was bad. Actually, I didn't see anything that I was like, that was terrible.
Wow,
doesn't mean they didn't exist this year. I just was fortunate enough to skip them. So, yeah. Gosh, I don't even remember what I saw, but first of all, this was the last Sundance that will be in Park City, Utah. It's moving to Boulder, Colorado next year. And so I went into this year's Sundance with the mindset of like, this is going to be my last one. And that was such a bummer, because I love Sundance. I've been going for years. And the idea of not going anymore is just, it's sad because it's such a fun time to experience stuff before other people have opinions about it. Like when stuff starts premiering at the fall festivals, people have already started talking about it. And so there's already that buzz. And so you have expectations. But with Sundance, there's just the excitement of, oh, it's this person's new movie or that person's going to be there. And you don't really know. You haven't heard anything yet, one way or the other, if something's gonna be good or bad. So yeah, it's fun. And usually there aren't trailers yet, so it's like you just go in totally blind. And so there was a lot of curiosity about a few movies that ended up being really good. One is called I Want Your Sex. It's a new movie from Greg Araki. And it stars Olivia Wilde and Cooper Hoffman. So apparently originally, according to the director at the Q&A afterwards, apparently originally the screenplay was supposed to be sort of a kind of a parody of 50 Shades of Grey, with a male boss and a female intern. And basically the premise is that Olivia Wilde plays this artist who has a gallery and a studio, and she has people like younger people come in and work for her and helping her with some of her art and stuff. But she's also really into BDSM, and so she ends up kind of bringing in Cooper Hoffman to be her sub, and so the two of them have this crazy relationship, which unlocks a lot of things for him. It's like a very new experience for him. And he kind of becomes obsessed with her. And it's interesting because I think this would not have worked if it had stayed with the original like male dom, and it just wouldn't have worked. And because it's Olivia Wilde, she's so good in this movie, and it's funny. It goes into some really interesting places. It references some classic films like Sunset Boulevard is a big reference point in the beginning. And it's such a fun, interesting movie. And funny enough, I watched that at 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning at the library in Park City. And it just was like, everything about this feels wrong, but I am enjoying this experience.
BDSM is like a topic this year because we've got Pillion has just come out, right? Like it's interesting that's coming up, and it seems to be fairly more positive stories, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, exploring that culture, not like dark, you know, cruising kind of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So that's an interesting one. And then also with Olivia Wilde, she directed a film this year. So this is her third feature. Her first one since Don't Worry, Darling. And it's called The Invite. And this is a much more grounded and grown up movie. Um, and so she stars as a woman who's married to a guy played by Seth Rogen, and they have one of those relationships where they just cannot not argue. Everything turns into a fight now. And the whole movie takes place pretty much in their apartment. She's invited the couple upstairs to come over for dinner and to get to know them a little bit. And the couple upstairs is played by Edward Norton and Penelope Cruz. And one of the things that
I just have to pause for a minute. These guys are punching way above their weight. Like Ed Norton and Penelope Cruz.
Yeah.
And Seth Rogen and Olivia Wilde. Like, guys, your wives are going to leave you for each other. That's what's going to happen here. Anyways, sorry, go on. I heard that. I was like, what?
No, yeah. Well, so that's what's funny is so the whole setup is like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, where it's these two couples. One is just constantly fighting, having these conversations. And so the conversations that they have throughout the evening are really interesting. But one of the things that's going into this evening is Seth Rogen's character does not want these people over. He doesn't want to have anything to do with them. All he wants is to let them know that they are very, very loud when they're having sex, and it's really annoying him and it's keeping him awake, and he wants to tell them about it. And his wife is just like, no, please don't. Well, it ends up coming up, and the way and the reason that it comes up is so funny. And it ends up being a broader conversation that includes another invitation. And so hence the title, The Invite. And that one was the standout movie of the festival. Everyone was talking about it. A24 ended up buying it. And yeah, so that'll be in theaters this later this year. All four performances were really good. So it was that one was definitely a really good one. But yes, the men are definitely yes. And let's see, what else did I see? I saw so many things. There was a movie called Wicker with Olivia Colman.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, and so it's an adaptation of a short story called The Wicker Husband. And Olivia Colman plays a woman who it's a fable. It's set in vaguely medieval times. And she plays this woman who in the short story is referred to as the ugly girl, but she's the fisher woman of the town, and she always kind of smells like fish, and her clothes aren't clean and nice, and she doesn't really care. And she ends up at a wedding. She catches basically the equivalent of the bridal bouquet. So it's like, oh, you're gonna be the next one to get married. Well, she doesn't care about marriage, but she ends up deciding to go to the basket maker, played by Peter Dinklage, and asking him to weave her a husband. And he's like, okay, be at the church in 30 days. And so she goes to the church and marries a guy that is basically a basket, played by Alexander Skarsgård. And he turns out to be the perfect husband in every way. And the people in town are like, this is messed up. And then the women start going, well, but he's pretty awesome as a husband. And the husbands are like, this sucks. Get rid of that guy. So it's really fun. The couple who wrote and directed it, they also did a movie a couple years ago called Save Yourselves, about this couple who goes off the grid right when aliens invade the planet. So they have this very particular sense of humor that is really good and really funny, and Wicker was delightful. So yeah, I liked that one a lot. There's a movie called The Only Living Pickpocket in New York, starring John Turturro, and it's directed by Noah Segan, who he's directed one other film, but he's more known for being an actor, and he's appeared in like every Rian Johnson movie.
Okay. Yeah.
He's the bar owner in
Yeah.
Wake Up Dead Man.
And he's like the sergeant, the second detective in
Yeah, in
Knives Out, and
yeah,
and I forget his name. He's like the random hippie guy on the island in
yeah.
Glass Onion. Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, that guy. So anyway, but the only living pickpocket in New York, John Turturro plays a guy who is a pickpocket in New York, and but it's become, you know, as technology has changed, everything is trackable now. It's just not as, and nobody carries cash anymore. It's just it's become a much harder job, but he ends up ripping off the wrong person and having to get something back that he's sold, and his very sick wife is kind of in the mix. It's one of those like, do this by this time or she's gonna get it. And so there's a lot of things about it that feel very familiar. It feels like a lot of other kind of crime, New York gritty crime movies that we've seen before, but John Turturro is so refreshing as an actor, and it's pretty mellow. So it's really good until about the last 15 minutes, and then it just slows to a crawl. And it's under 90 minutes long, but the last 15 minutes just really slow down so much that it's like, this isn't quite there. But I think Turturro's performance is so good that it's worth it. And yeah, I really liked that one.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I saw a lot of things. I can run through the titles, and if anything interests you, I can talk about it. I saw Who Killed Alex O'Day, which is a documentary. I saw Carousel starring Chris Pine and Jenny Slate. Hot Water, which is a road trip movie, a mother and son on a road trip. The Incomer, which is a Scottish Islands movie with this brother and sister who live alone, and Domhnall Gleeson plays the government official sent to evict them from their island. That one was cute. The Lake is a documentary about how the Great Salt Lake is drying up and it's going to poison everybody with its arsenic. The Gallerist with Natalie Portman and Jenna Ortega. That one was pretty fun. Zach Galifianakis ends up impaled on a art piece and becomes part of the show. It's a satire by Kathy Ann.
Fantastic! That's Kathy Ann's new film.
Yes, that's
great.
Kathy Ann's movie. Yeah, it's really fun. And let's see, I saw a movie called The Musical, which is sort of a Norman Bates meets Election, the Alexander Payne movie. That one was like weird and goofy, but I had fun with it. And yeah. Let's see. Cookie Queens is a really cute documentary about Girl Scouts selling cookies. It's darling. It's so cute. You have one girl who's like the highest selling Girl Scout cookie salesperson in the entire state of North Carolina, and then you have a little 5-year-old in San Diego, California, who just wants to sell enough boxes to get a bandana. It's so cute.
It's like a Bob's Burgers episode.
Yeah. There's The Wait, which is the Ethan Hawke movie. That one is going to be very divided, I think, in gender lines, because the screening I went to, there were 3 of us girls that were sitting together, women, and we were meeting up with 2 men for lunch, and we ended up separated, so we were just meeting them over at the restaurant. And on the way over, us 3 ladies, we were all talking about like all the problems with this movie and how much we didn't like it. And we're like, I bet the guys loved it. And we get over there and they were like, oh my gosh, wasn't that so good? We're like, no. It was okay. Ethan Hawke was great. The cinematography is beautiful, but the movie itself, it's so it keeps grinding to a halt. Like it's like all the things that should be tense moments just fall flat. Everything is resolved way too easily. And yeah, sometimes there's a scene where somebody's like, oh, this person's in danger, they could die, but it's like, but you put the lead in that situation and we know he's going to make it to the end. So, you know, it just, yeah. So that one just didn't really work that well. In the Blink of an Eye is a interesting sci-fi movie from the guy that directed Wall-E.
Oh.
Yeah, it's three different timelines happening at the same time. It's like 45,000 BC with the Neanderthals, and then there's like a modern time, and then 2400, like 2417 that year in the future with Kate McKinnon. It was interesting. I wouldn't say it was great, but it was definitely interesting. So kind of this idea of how we're all connected across time, like as a species. So yeah. Let's see. I saw a couple documentaries. Silenced is about women speaking out after being attacked. Actually gets a lot into the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp case. All About the Money is a documentary about a rich dude who thinks that he's doing all these benevolent things, but everything he does is like self-serving. Yeah, he actually offered the director money to not ever release the documentary, and she was like, no, thank you.
Oh, that's always interesting when there's like background, just like, how did this get out? Like, just like, well, he really didn't want it to.
Yep. Another great documentary I saw was Everybody to Kenmure Street, which is from a situation that happened in 2021 in Scotland. And it's so relevant to today because in Scotland, they were trying to deport these two immigrants. And as soon as people heard what was going on, they just kind of like took to the street. So it was like basically everybody within a mile radius showed up to protest this, and it eventually worked. So that was very good and very relevant and very like timely, you know. I don't know. I saw a bunch of other stuff too. It like so many things, and this is taking a really long time, but yeah.
Well, it sounds like it was a good festival.
It really was. It really was.
I'm glad. I'm glad that for like your last one in Park City it was enjoyable. Yeah. So like honestly, like a lot of the ones you listed, I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. Some of them I've vaguely heard of, or I've seen like behind the scenes pictures or stuff like that. But there's a bunch there that I think, yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. It'll be fun to see when they come out. Sort of being able to revisit them and seeing if some of that was just like the festival buzz high, or
and
if they were really that good.
That's always an issue with festivals, is that you feel like, you know, things seem both much better and much worse than they actually are, I think. Yes. And then you get all of kind of the energy and everything that's surrounding it. It's just like, oh, it's so good. Like, I mean, you know, we've talked about some of the films that came out that like people are just hyperbolize about. And then they actually get released to the wider audience. Just like, what is wrong with you people?
Yeah.
Like, so yeah. And then there's also the issue of, you know, the predominance of particularly white people and particularly white men. You know, all of that. But yeah, it sounds like it was a good festival. I'm glad it was. Yeah. I had a good time.
Yeah, it was fun. The only living pickpocket in New York is why I messaged you to ask if it's possible to get from Queens to the Bronx in an hour.
So after I answered, just, you know, to let everybody know, so Karen messaged me this. I was like, I don't know. And then I like did,
or you know, not possible. I asked if it's reasonable.
I did like Google Maps on it. It's just like, yeah, no, it's not. Like I know that it takes, so to get from my apartment in Brooklyn to to one of the nearest stops in the Bronx, take me about an hour and a half by train. It's a little, I think that Queens like has a little more of a direct route, but it would be very dependent on where actually, like from what point in Queens you're going and where you're going to in the Bronx. Like if you have to switch trains, like all kinds of things. But even then, like that's no. No.
I was suspicious of it. is I was like, I remember how long it took to get to Queens, and I know I never made it to the Bronx, and
Well,
yeah.
and like, yeah, like I say, it's dependent sometimes on like where you're going from and where you're going to in the different boroughs, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you look at a map, if you're not driving, maybe driving, I think is more possible, but again, depends upon where you're going and what time you're leaving and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, if you look at a map, like the Bronx is on the other end of Manhattan, like it's way over there.
Yeah.
So no, not with the MTA the way that it is. Maybe someday, I don't know.
Yeah, I figured.
Alright. Well, sounds great. Well, yeah, so thank you for that, Karen.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Excited to see some of those movies. And so now it is February. It's unfortunately a somewhat short month for us because I will be out of town the last week of, or at the very end of February. But we wanted to do some Black History Month films, and we are going to start with Get Out because we wanted to do horror movies leading up to talking about Sinners, which has been nominated for so many Oscars this year, which is just fucking fantastic.
We'll talk about it when we get there, but yeah, it broke the record.
Yeah, it was like 16, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. And so for our first film, we're going to talk about Get Out, which was nominated for 4 Oscars, including Best Picture, Original Screenplay, Best Actor, and Best Director, and it won Original Screenplay. And was kind of, I remember when it came out, it was like very divisive in terms of the Oscar voters. Like there was an Oscar voter who's like, oh, it's too preachy, and like they're talking to us about, they're talking, I'm not a racist. And it's like, I think that maybe you didn't pay attention to what the film was actually saying to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, it was quite a predictable response, but very like on point,
Oh yeah. Like so many people were proving Jordan Peele's point by their reaction to the film.
Yeah, old white people. Like,
yep.
Like, but Get Out was sort of, in a lot of ways, it was kind of the beginning when people began really talking again about this whole idea of elevated horror. And horror with a social message. And it's one of those times where you're kind of like, well, have you been paying attention to horror? Because a lot of horror has a social message. I mean, you go back to films like Night of the Living Dead, even back further to like Dracula and Nosferatu. Sometimes those messages are not as, I guess, prevalent, although I don't know how you could miss what's going on in something like Night of the Living Dead. But a lot of people just tend to, particularly white people, tend to ignore it, right? You're just like, oh no, it's just scary. But Get Out really kind of created this more of this culture of like actually talking about the social issues again, that horror can represent. And it's particularly notable in the sense that this is a very Black film. It's being told from a Black perspective and is very much about, racism but also American culture and white culture and the kind of conflicts that develop within that, and also white complacency. I think that's when it pissed a lot of people off. It made a lot of people really pay attention, also just pissed a lot of people off exactly because of that, because it was like the racists, right? The villains, the bad guys are not, the redneck hicks in, sort of somewhere Mississippi. They're a bunch of, affluent white allies in, somewhere north of New York. Like they're all the white liberals in the suburbs who are like, I would have voted for Obama a third time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it turns the camera and the attention very much on white complacency and white and microaggression and white violence against Black bodies, all sorts of things. And it does it from a Black perspective and very much a story about Black people, for Black people, and by Black people. So to start out with, like, Karen, was there anything that just leapt out for you in rewatching Get Out? It has been actually quite a bit since I've seen this film, and it was one of those times where I was like, like it wasn't so much that I was like, oh, I never realized, but I was definitely picking up on more things that I think I hadn't really thought about when I first saw the film.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that I think really stands out to me and makes this such an excellent film is the fact that, like, on the one level, it's, you know, it's really obvious the things that these, you know, rich white people are saying about, you know, about an appreciation of Black people. And so they have convinced themselves that they're not racist. They appreciate, you know, like the athleticism or the intelligence, or in the case of Daniel Kaluuya's character, he's a photographer, and so he's got this, like, this great eye for photography. And so it's like they have convinced themselves that they are not the problem because they really appreciate and recognize the intelligence and the worth of Black people. Except for that what they're doing is trying to take over these Black people's bodies for themselves. And so it's like it's so insidious. And I think what I just think is so brilliant about what Jordan Peele did with his screenplay is that he's making that really clear point about how the many different levels and layers of racism, and how pretty much anybody and everybody falls victim to that, or gets roped into that without even realizing it. And he does that with this, you know, this very horror, very graphic idea of, like, literally transplanting brains and stuff, which is just such a wild idea, but it's such a great way to drive home his point. And yeah, so I really like that. And you start to, I haven't watched this movie in a long time. I saw it a couple of times when it first came out, but I don't think I've watched it since 2017. And so there are things that it's like, oh wow, I you know, these certain conversations just take on a different meaning when you know where it's going. Like the brother, when he shows up and they're having that conversation around the dinner table, and he's asking, oh, what's his character's name?
Jeremy.
So
Jeremy,
played by Caleb Landry Jones. So Jeremy's asking Chris about, like, oh, are you into football? Do you play, you know, do you, like, what sorts of sports do you play and stuff? And at the time you think he's just this awkward brother who's just asking these weird questions, but once you find out what's really going on, it's like, oh, that is dark. He's really, he's sussing out details that they can use to auction this guy off.
Well, and I think that that's what's interesting, at least from the perspective of going into this, you know, as a white person, as it were. And knowing, I think that once you know, as a white viewer, once you know what the outcome is going to be, once you know what they're actually up to, and we talked about this a little bit last night, it does make you pay more attention to that. And you also begin to pay more attention to the microaggressions that are going on. So that conversation, which is in a lot of ways more blatant than some of the other ones, but that conversation where it's all about physical prowess, right? The things that Black men are good at, right? Football, baseball, basketball, what's your sport, right? He asks other questions like, have you ever been in a fight? You know, and then gets into the talking about, well, with your, you know, and the most obvious is, well, with your genetic makeup, right? It's all of this whole thing about Black people being, you know, it's the whole concept of naturally, right, athletic, but in particular ways,
right?
And then we get even more of that throughout the entire film. We get a lot of that, of like, so the conversation that Chris has with Hudson, the Stephen Root character, the blind man, where you know, he's talking about, oh, you have such a great eye, you have such a, you know, understanding of what you're photographing. If you look, we see Chris's photographs at the beginning of the film. What he's taking pictures of and what he has an eye for is the Black experience, and that's what he's photographing. And that's not coming from his physical eyes, right? That's coming from his experience as a Black man in the United States, and his experience as an individual man in the United States. And what all of these white people want is the possession of that Black body, that somehow the physicality of these Black people is going to give them the personality of them, or the soul of them, right? That, you know, inhabiting this Blackness is suddenly going to make this, you know, man who admits that he was a failed photographer before he went blind, right? He didn't have the sight. He didn't see what he needed to see. He thinks that he can just possess Chris's sight and be able to see what he sees. It's like, you can't though, can you?
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think it's so interesting and further insidious the way that they have that conversation. Chris has been wandering around this party being surrounded by people who are asking him really weird and invasive questions. He's already uncomfortable because this is his first time meeting his girlfriend's family, and now he's thrown into this party, and he's felt uncomfortable since they left the house in the city. And this is the first person that, besides Rose, where he can sit down and feel comfortable, because he's feeling like he's being appreciated by somebody who really just is taking an interest in him and his work. And so this is the only person besides Rose that makes him feel comfortable at this gathering. And so then for that guy to be the one who buys him at an auction, it just makes it that much more insidious. And
yeah, and it shows that buildup, I think, of the different layers, like I say, of microaggressions and of racism and of that sort of, you know, we've talked before about like that concept of positive stereotypes, right? And because it isn't, and again, it's not just the more blatant instances of racism, which Chris and Rose actually talk about at one point. Like Rose begins going into it, right?
Yeah.
And it's those, there's that level, like the brothers
they
level.
Experience it with the police officer on the way up.
Yeah. And I think we're going to talk about Rose in a minute, because she's a fantastic villain, but really one of the worst human beings in the entire film. In a film full of terrible white people, she is one of the worst. But it's about like that apparent allyship, right? And sort of Chris also, like you say, at that point, he's seeking out pretty much anyone who's going to talk to him like a human being and not a thing, right? And you get those instances where, like, you know, oh, you know, I love Tiger Woods, and but like people asking to see his golf swing, and like women grabbing his arms and asking Rose how the sex is, like all of that. But it's this consistent dehumanization, this treatment of him as a body, right? And then you get to this man who is blind, right? So he can't, you know, he quote can't see race. And in fact, he reinforces that much later on in the film, just like, I don't care what color you are. But it's that, like, but he knows who Chris is, and he knows what Chris has taken photographs of. He knows what Chris can see. He's an art dealer, right? But it is, again, that insidious notion of like the person who cannot see race is the one that buys you, right? It's the one that wants to own your art, your ability to make art. And it is just as evil and as terrible as like the more blatant instances of racism. And you've got that running throughout the entire film.
Yeah.
And so, like, one of the things that struck me is that so much of this film is very much about that kind of related in similar ways to the other two films we're going to be talking about this month, which are Candyman, the remake of Candyman, and Sinners, about this sort of empty center of whiteness and of white supremacy. Because one of the things that all of these people kind of want is that they want to possess sort of the Black body, right? The physical thing that is the body, and have and inhabit it with their own souls, basically. And it's this desire for like art and culture and ability and and like excellence that they think these Black people represent to them, but also this total dehumanization and that emptiness that is at the center of white supremacy, because we have, it's more prevalent in Sinners in a lot of ways, but it's like we've sacrificed our culture, our souls, our everything, every connection that we might have had to each other. We sacrifice it in the name of whiteness and whiteness as power and, lording it over everybody else. And now we want yours. We want your soul instead. And that, watching it this time, that was one of the things, I think, probably in reference to what is represented in Sinners as well. That was one of the things that really struck me in this film. This again is, this is almost 10 years before Sinners, but there's definitely a continuum that exists there.
Yeah, well, and I think that's where Jordan Peele gets so much credit for, not just for this new phase of the, as you said, elevated horror, but and introducing the social issues, but he introduces some very specific issues that really needed to be discussed. And this came at a time where, where conversations about the fact that Hollywood was still very predominantly white and male, who gets to make films, who gets to make the big films with big budgets. Jordan Peele had a lot to do with like kicking those doors open and expanding that. And I think it's because one of the things about Get Out is it's not just, and I remember this being a big debate at the time, it's not just a straight up horror movie. There's a lot of humor in it.
Yeah.
Like Lil Rel Howery's character, the TSA agent friend,
Rod.
Rod. He's so funny, and but he's also so smart, and like he clocks what's going on, even though he is hundreds of miles away. Like he knows what's happening, and that something's wrong. But that's the thing, is like, so there's this humor in it. There's also, there's just, it's such an intriguing story. There's that mystery element. So he brings in all these things that just make it a good, enjoyable movie to watch, while also hitting us over the head with a really important social message. And so he basically opened up a new way of telling very direct stories that call people out for their bullshit, while also making us enjoy the experience.
He mainstreamed it in a lot of ways. Like Get Out is not the first, but it's one of those that it's centralized a lot of things, and particularly this whole idea, because one of the things that particularly white audiences are very comfortable with is bigotry, right? Calling out bigotry, really like blatant racism, like the KKK. Right. Yeah. We're more comfortable, white liberals at least, are very comfortable having that called out. Mm-hmm. But we're not so comfortable when it's the nice Connecticut family. And, and particularly not when they're parroting the kind of, attitudes and beliefs, et cetera, that a lot of white liberals hold.
Yeah.
So even like that emphasis on Black excellence, it's just like, well, but we love Black people. They're great, and they're so wonderful. And of course the film then takes they're so wonderful. We want to be them.
Yeah.
And we want to become Black, at one point it's even like, oh, it's a fad, it's a trend, it's like the putting on of Black skin is like a thing, a thing that you can wear this year because that's what's in style.
Yeah, they basically say something along the lines of like, white is out, Black is in.
But it is that like, and it also then calls attention to all of the ways in which obviously white mainstream culture then co-ops Blackness. And it happens all the time. It happens, with jazz and rock and roll. It happens with music and art and fashion and language, and dance, dance styles, like everything. So much of it originates in the United States with Black culture, and often within very specific Black cultures, within like, Brooklyn or Bed-Stuy or, Compton, etc. And then it gets co-opted and sort of toned down and softened, right, and kind of turned beige, basically.
Yeah.
And that's, so that's one of the things that I really like in this film, and that I noticed more, I think, probably than I did the first time I watched it, is the code switching that happens with Chris, and with the way that Chris talks to Rod, and the way that Chris talks to the other Black men that he meets, who are, of course, if you've seen the film before, are inhabited by these old white people.
Yeah.
But the way that he code switches, the way that he doesn't say everything that he feels, right? He's actually very quiet and careful when he is with his girlfriend's family, long before he thinks that they're not to be trusted. But then also, when he begins talking to and now I'm blanking on his name, Dre, the Lakeith Stanfield character, who we see at the beginning of the film, and then
we see him get kidnapped.
And then when he shows up, and it's so good because it is being told from the perspective of Chris, and as a result, the audience feels the wrongness of this interaction. It's just like, that's not, it's basically what the undercurrent is. That's not how Black men talk to each other, right? That's not, this guy doesn't know some of the cultural elements that a man of his age, a Black man of his age, would naturally know, would just have as a part of his lexicon. And it's reinforced a number of times, just like something is wrong, right? Something is wrong with this guy.
Yeah, he's talking like an 80-year-old white man.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't
he's dressing like one.
All of that. And so it's just like, and again, it reinforces, when you know what's going on, it really does reinforce that idea of like, you can't just put on someone else's body and become them.
Right.
Because it's superficial, it's flattened, it's not real. Like you've enslaved this person. That's what's happened. And there's a lot of, particularly with the characters of Walter and of what's her name? She's the grandmother. Georgina, yeah. There's also the sort of there seems to be a referentiality to the idea of Black people who become assimilated but have also been servants. So there's sort of a house slave analogy that's going on. The way that they relate to Chris, and those sort of like gradations, and and it changes when you know what has actually happened, but it also allows for these multiple layers of narrative and of characterization.
Well, even so, when Chris and Rose first arrive at the house, and the first thing he sees is Walter. And Rose is like, oh yeah, he's the groundskeeper. And then they go inside and he meets Georgina, who's the housekeeper. And that's even addressed. Bradley Whitford's character is like, I know how it looks, or this rich white family, and we've got these black servants working for us. And then he's like trying to explain and justify, well, they came in to take care of my parents. And then after my parents died, we just didn't want to let them go. So they're part of the family now. But it's like, but they're not part of the family because they work for you. And but Chris sees that right away. So it's like, yeah, sure, they're saying all the quote unquote right things, but immediately he knows that this is, a very traditionally, hierarchical family. And he can see that. And I just wanted to say, one of the things that I think is really, another of the many things that I think is really great about this film. So years ago, and I don't remember which show it was, and I don't remember who was talking, but there was an award show, probably the Oscars, where someone was accepting an award, and they were talking about, essentially they said, all white people are racist. And I remember hearing that, and this is back before I had like a really fundamental change in my political views. And I remember hearing that and being so offended, because I was just like, what? I am not racist. Like those are a lot of white people that are not racist, right? And but that resonated with me. Unfortunately, not enough to remember who said it. But but that thought resonated with me. And
Mhm.
over the years, I thought about it a lot. And instead of just being mad about it, I really interrogated why they would say such a thing and where that was maybe a little bit true. And this movie really helped me see a lot of the things that, not that I was necessarily doing, but that just white people in general do, that totally deserve a comment like all white people are racist, because those traits are there.
Yeah.
And to not to say we can't help it, but to some extent, like there's just so much in how we are raised, in the things that we hear. Like, I mean, part of it is just stuff I learned in school and the way I was taught. It's not even from my parents or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just being part of a society where there are just certain things that were looked at in a certain way, that it's like, oh, with the benefit of learning and growing and understanding, you start to see, oh yeah, that's actually really messed up. And I think that Get Out did that for a lot of people, really helped us see those those problems in our thinking.
Yeah, and I think that it forces, for a white viewer, you kind of can have two reactions to it. You can either actually listen to what the film is saying and try to interrogate it, or you can resist it and you can say like, no, I don't like this, etc. And I think that it does prompt both reactions sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's part of it, in terms of if you want to work on being anti-racist as a white person in American society, that's kind of one of the things that you have to deal with. But yeah, it's been said many times before, America is a white supremacist society. We're built on colonialism. We are built on slavery. We are built on racism, and we continue to benefit from it as white people, and we continue to reinforce it as white people, including those of us who want to be anti-racist and who are like, oh no, I'm not a racist person. It's like, yeah, you are, because you're white in America.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a matter of that kind of interrogation and paying attention to films like this, which are not, all three of the films that we're talking about this month are not, I don't feel like they're made for white people. They're definitely films that are anti-racist, that seem to be specifically made for a white audience.
Yeah.
I don't feel like Get Out or Candyman or Sinners, any of them are made with white people in mind. They're made for Black people, and they're made by Black people. And it's saying like this, that doesn't mean that we can't watch them, right? In fact,
Right.
we should, but they're not our movies. And that's something else, we've talked about over the years of like, when you exist as the default, it's this almost shock. It's just like, what do you mean it's not for me? What do you mean you're not centralizing my perspective? And I think that happens even with something like Get Out. And, we saw some of the reactions to it, but even like, so the reaction that you're describing, where I think that, most white liberal people at some point have been told like, oh, all white people are racist, and had that sort of visceral, like, well, I'm not, I'm not one of them. But yeah, I think that that's something that's really important in Get Out, is that it takes those images and those phrases, all of those words, because like so much of what happens in this film, like I'm just like, I've either heard other white people say that, or I have said it myself, right, at some point, or thought it even. And it says like, here it's not just the blatant, using slurs or anything like that. It's not just the blatant kind of racism, it's the insidious stuff. And that's very often what is the most dangerous and the most damaging, because it's easy to recognize the more blatant racism and say, well, I'm not one of those people. It's like, okay, good, that's good, but you are one of these people. And that's something that like Get Out kind of forces you to do, and it forces you to put yourself in Chris's position particularly. And that's like, it's an important element of the film, and it's important, that we engage with it. Let's talk about
That sounds
Rose.
like a great transition. Yeah. Into the I would say into the whole Armitage family. So
yes, let's talk about the Armitage family generally.
Yeah.
And just as a side note, like we've talked a lot about themes, really, and like the underlying themes for all this. This is a really well constructed film,
Mhm.
because and this is why, like, we've talked a couple of times recently about how a really great film you can watch multiple times and still enjoy it and still love it and find new things within it. And this is a film where when you know what is happening, it it enriches it even more, because you go back and you're like, oh, like, there are things that I just did not notice. Maybe I would have, right? But it's like, oh my God, like, there are even little jokes. You're like, oh, that's not okay. Like all of those little things, and they build up. But like, so the references, the mother is a psychiatrist, the father is a neurosurgeon, the brother he's going to medical school, he's following in his father's footsteps. It builds everything really, really intricately and tells you what's happening all the way through. And you might pick up on it, you might not. And just like Chris, you're kind of like, something's going on, but I'm not entirely certain what it is, but it's wrong. Like, and then you go back to it, you're like, yes, all of this fits together.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, is like, they're saying all of the things, like, yeah, I mean, I would have voted for Obama a third time, stuff like that. But they're trying to make Chris feel welcome. Supposedly they didn't know that Rose was dating someone who is Black, and this is her first relationship, but they're trying to be really welcoming with him. And so they're saying all those great things. But yeah, when you watch this again and you listen to the conversations and you listen to the ways that they are trying to like lure him into this sense of security with themselves, and then there's that he smokes, and so they keep bringing that up as this like flaw. We need to get rid of that, and kind of trying to make him feel bad about it. Like, there's a part where he's talking to Missy right before she starts to hypnotize him, and she's like, that's my kid, don't smoke in front of my kid, and she's acting like the concerned mother. Like, that's her concern, is that he's exposing her daughter to dangerous, secondhand smoke, not that he's wrecking his own body and its resale value.
It's well, that the smoking thing really this time around just bothered me so much, because of exactly that. It's just like, oh God, they're worried about, like, it's that like physical thing of just like, oh, he's destroying his health, which would be bad to sell him, right? Like that's basically what they're doing. But yeah, even like those so there is that kind of that jokiness, right? And Rose plays a really specific and really necessary role in this film, because she's the one who recognizes it, right? And she is like kind of in charge of making him comfortable. And of being like, oh God, my dad talking like that was so terrible. She's like the one who recognizes those microaggressions and talks to him about them. And it's just like, oh, I can't believe that my brother acting like this, like all of those things. And the entire time, the whole point is keep him there, right? Keep him there, keep him comfortable, keep him malleable, so that when the time comes to actually entrap him and enslave him, he will be ready for it, right? And that's running throughout the entire film. So she like, she's the quote, she's the good white person, right? She's the good ally. And the entire time she is prepping him, basically.
And I would argue that Rose is actually the most villainous of everybody in this film, because of the fact that she goes out into the world, she finds people, she lures them in, which we find out when Chris starts going through the photos. Supposedly he's the first Black guy she's ever dated, but he finds all these photos of all these people, including Georgina and Walter, that she has been in relationships with before. So she's going out and ensnaring people, bringing them home to mom and dad under all these pretenses of like, oh, our family's so great, they're gonna love you, and then trapping them there and doing everything she can to keep him there, including even telling him at the end, when things are really starting to go crazy, it's okay, Chris, we're gonna go. I'm gonna get my stuff. We're gonna go. Let me just find my keys. You're like, so she's like right up until the very end, she is trying to keep him comfortable and make him believe that she is on his side while she is constantly setting him up and prepping him to basically be taken over and sort of killed, and it's so
enslaved. I mean, that's what
enslaved.
happens.
Yeah. And it's so insidious and it's so evil that and she's so good at it. That's the thing. Like, she's so good at what she does.
I like
it just sorry.
I was gonna say that we're Rod at one point, like he has a conversation with her on the phone, and he's like, "Oh, she's terrible. She's wicked. She's a genius." Like, I really like that because it's just like, yeah, she's very good at this. Like, and it's that recognition of like, oh, she is the worst.
Yeah. Because he's known her since the beginning, because he's Chris's best friend, and so he's known her as long as Chris has, and they've gotten along really well. And then as soon as something goes awry, he knows, he clocks it.
Yeah, well, and it's like they say they've been together for 5 months. Like, they've been dating for a while. Like, so this is like this is a relationship, Yeah, one of the things with Rose, and that again in rewatching the film, you clock it even more. Certainly I did, at least. But like right from the beginning, he starts out saying, like, have you told your parents? Right? And she's like, well, what would I tell my parents? Like, and it's like that I'm a black guy, like that you're dating a black man. And it's all of this is this reinforcement that he understands the experience of being a black man in America and of dating a white woman. And of like the racial issues that are going into this. And she is, it's really well done because she's this combination of like accepting and dismissive. She listens and responds to his concerns just enough, and then creates a scenario where she's going to dismiss them.
Yeah.
And she does it over and over and over again throughout the film. Where she'll make a joke, she'll be like, oh, you're being silly, all of that. She will understand just enough of the racial issues without completely validating them. And she also mothers him. And it's really bizarre. Like the initial thing where she throws his cigarette out the window. And, he says to her briefly, like, I'm a grown man, right? Yeah. He's like, he's allowed to, like, he's a grown man. He is allowed to smoke if he wants to. Like, that is a choice he can make. But all of that where she's like constantly kind of taking things from him and sort of managing his behavior. And she's doing it in this really subtle and underhanded way. And one of the things in watching it this time is when they hit the deer, right? Which kind of acts as this sort of underlying metaphor throughout the film. They hit the deer, and then a cop shows up they have to report it to the police and everything. And he asks Chris, the white cop, he asks Chris for his ID. And Rose goes into this whole thing of like, how dare you ask him for his ID? Like, and it is this paternalistic thing that's happening. But in watching, I was like, she's stopping anyone from knowing where he is.
Yeah.
And that's part of, and you're like, well, would this cop be on his side? No, not necessarily, but she's not even risking that. She is being certain, like he's not going to be in the system. No one will have heard of him, basically.
Yeah.
And that's right from the very start. And so you've got this, she's being kind of the white savior who is, defending this guy in a situation where he can't defend himself. And it's that paternalistic aspect, but then it's also this more insidious one of she's being certain that he is completely isolated.
Yeah, he is untraceable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when the movie came out, I remember Allison Williams was doing a lot of press, and she was on, I think it was Jimmy Kimmel, and doing an interview, and she said that she was getting all kinds of like letters and stuff from people that were trying to justify Rose's actions and like, oh, well, it's her family that made her do this and stuff. And she was like, you guys need to watch the movie again. Rose is the worst.
Well, I love the shift that she goes through too, when it's like, because up until the key thing, right? She's so up until very close to the end of the film, she's, he's suspecting her more and more.
Yeah.
And the audience is suspecting her more and more, but it's still this like, oh God, let her be like one of the good ones.
Yeah,
right?
like she didn't know this is what was happening.
Yeah. Or she's, been brainwashed by her own family or something like that.
Yeah.
Let there be some kind of justification for this. It's just like, nope, there is none. But she transforms. And someone pointed out that like she immediately, she puts on this high white turtleneck, these jodhpurs, the like slicked, like pulled back hair. She's, the whole white supremacist thing of drinking milk, that like, relationship. I like milk. I'm not, it makes me so sad. It's like, no, they took milk from us. But like all of
you
that,
can still drink
like,
milk. It's okay.
Well, and someone pointed out that like at the scene where she's on the computer and you get a shot like behind her of like her bed behind her. She's got all of these pictures of her ex-lovers on the wall, and it was pointed out that like these are kind of the whole image is of hunting trophies, right?
Yeah.
And she's dressed as a hunter, and she like eventually she's dressed like, by the end of the film, she's dressed like a big game hunter.
Yeah.
And carrying around this rifle, and it's such a great transformation, because you do get the sense of like seeing the reality of who she is. Like that is who she is. She's put on this facade, but underneath she is this like white woman who treats Black people as game, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And she's very good at it. It's a fantastic performance from Allison Williams.
Yeah, she's very, very good at it. Anything else you wanted to want to touch on about Get Out? There's so much depth to this film. And like I say, it's been a long time since I've seen it. But rewatching it this time, and maybe rewatching it in this era as well. So it was made in 2017, rewatching it in 2026, post George Floyd, considering where we are as a country, all of these things, it just makes it that much stronger and more poignant and more like, it's like, yeah, he's right.
Yeah, no, I think it's a brilliant film, and part of the brilliance, like I said, is that it's really entertaining to watch as well.
Yeah, it's just very, very fun. Like you say, you get those moments of comedy. I like the fact also that the comedy reinforces how the ridiculousness of the plot itself, because in some ways we've got this very serious horror film, and then Rod basically like figures all of it out. Like he's just like, this is what's happening. They're a bunch of like a cult of white people who are brainwashing Black people and making them into slaves,
slaves.
And you're just like, yeah, that's what's happening. But it sounds so ridiculous when you lay it out like that. It's like, of course no one's going to believe you.
Yeah, when he goes to the police and he's talking to the one officer, the detective, and she, you can like, it doesn't show it specifically, but you can hear her saying like, okay, hold on, now tell them what you just told me. And she's wanting him to repeat that story because they all think it's hilarious.
Yeah,
and
it's ridiculous.
Yeah. And but he's absolutely right.
Yeah,
because he is TSA.
He is TS motherfucking A.
Yes.
We handle shit. I did like, so I guess that there were a couple of alternate endings to this film, including one of them where the cops do actually show up and arrest Chris.
Yeah.
After, total massacre this family.
Right.
But that's that moment where you see the cop car and the flashing lights, and particularly now, but particularly like in 2017, I just remember the first time I saw this one, that like dropping of my gut of like, oh God, like you've got this Black man covered in blood, like leaning over this shot white woman, and behind her are, the bodies of her family in a burning house. Right? You're just like, oh God.
Yeah.
And then Rod steps out. I was like, oh, thank Jesus.
Right.
But yeah, it's interesting because it does have this, not a happy ending, but a slightly more hopeful ending, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a satisfying ending.
Yeah.
There's also Rose's precautions to make sure nobody ties Chris to having been there is why he's going to be able to get away with it. Or not get away with it because he didn't do anything wrong, but why he won't be tied to what happened.
Yeah, and everybody who knew he was there are also part of this cult, and they can't really be like, oh, we know who did it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then also you're like, okay, also if the cops go in there, what are they going to find?
Mhm.
And what information are they actually going to wind up with? But yeah, so it is a little bit more of a hopeful ending than I guess some of the alternatives would have been, but it's still just like that. And Daniel Kaluuya gives such a good performance throughout this film and manages all of the emotions so well. Just the way that he's drained by the end of it. That, and it reinforces, one of the themes of the film that we didn't really talk about, but that use of trauma to, enslave in a lot of ways, to like continuously draw out the trauma that he's experienced, and he's just gone through an incredibly traumatic experience again, and the violence that inflicts on you psychologically.
Yeah.
So any final thoughts on Get Out?
Just watch it again, it's so good.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is available on HBO Max, and it is also rentable. And really, like, I should own it. I don't know why I don't.
I thought I did. I was shocked. I was like, yeah, I thought I owned it.
It is such a good film, and really, really holds up on multiple viewings too.
It does.
So that is going to close us out for this week. Next week, we will be talking about Nia DaCosta's Candyman.
Yeah, we will.
Which is another film I have not seen since it came out, and I'm really looking forward to it. And then the week after that, we will be discussing Sinners, which I'm also really looking forward to. So, of course, we want to thank our patrons who continue to support us and keep the lights on for us. We hope that y'all are enjoying our bonus series that we're doing for League of Their Own. And we will be continuing with that pretty soon, so keep an eye out for that. And of course, thank you so much to Abby, Audra, Brian, Connor, Estefania, Ferdinand, Heather, James, Judy, Carriata, Matt, Michelle, MK, Monty, Nanina, Noel, Robert, Roxy, Steve, and Sharon. Thank you so much for supporting us. If you want to become one of their number, our Patreon is patreon.com/citizendame. You get some fun buttons and stickers, and you also get our bonus episodes and our episodes early. So definitely check that out. It really helps us out. We also have a Ko-Fi, that's ko-fi.com/citizendame. And you can check out writings on our website, citizendamepod.com. And you can get in touch with us a multitude of ways. Our email is citizendamepod@gmail.com. And we are on Instagram and Blue Sky @citizendamepod and Letterboxd @citizendame. And of course, you can get in touch with us individually. Karen, where are you?
I am on Instagram, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky at Karen M. Peterson.
And I am on Instagram and Letterboxd @LH Business. So thank you so much for listening. We will talk to y'all later.
Bye.
Come on. Oh, hey, hang on. Chris, I want to introduce you to some friends. This is David and Marcia Wincott, Ronald and Celia Jeffries, Hiroki Tanaka, and Jessica and Friedrich Wald.
Too many names to remember, but hi.
Do you find that being African American has more advantage or disadvantage in the modern world?
It's a tough one.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Hey.
Yo, my man. They were asking me about the African American experience. Maybe you could take this one. Oh. Well, I find that the African-American experience for me has been, for the most part, very good. Although, I find it difficult to go into detail as I haven't had much desire to leave the house in a while.
We've become such homebodies.
Yes, but even when you go into the city, I've just had no interest. The chores have become my sanctuary. Get out. Sorry, man.
Okay.
Get out! Yo! Yeah! Yo, shoot it! Get out! Shoot!